Imagine holding a key to unlock the door to wisdom. This is precisely the theme we are exploring today, the 6 Steps of Cultivation from Laozi's Tao Te Ching, Chapter 10. In Laozi's philosophy, a sage is not just a title. It represents a state of being, a realm achieved through cultivation that embodies harmony and wisdom. But how does one become a sage? Let's span thousands of years and seek answers directly from the original text of Laozi. This is not just an exploration of knowledge, but also an awakening of the soul. We will introduce Chapter 10 of Laozi. In Laozi's book, we often encounter the term sage. We know that a sage is a ruler who has comprehended the Tao, but we also wish to understand how a sage is cultivated. There are several places in Laozi's book that discuss the methods of cultivation, the most important being 2 chapters, Chapter 10 and Chapter 16. Chapter 10 more detailedly mentions the 6 steps of cultivation. In this chapter, Laozi first introduces the 6 steps and then provides a brief summary. Let's read Laozi's original text first. Laozi, Chapter 10, can you carry the yoke and embrace the one without leaving? Focus your chi to be as tender as an infant? Cleanse the deep mirror, can it be without blemish? Love the people and govern the nation, can you act without action? The heavenly gate opens and closes, can you be the receptive one? Understand all directions, can you be without cunning? Nurture life, give birth without possessing, act without relying, grow without controlling. This is called the mysterious virtue. The meaning is obviously very rich and complex. Let's first say it in plain language. Can the spirit and the body cooperate to hold on to the Tao without leaving? Can you follow the breath and pursue softness like an infant? Can you cleanse distractions and deeply observe without any flaw? Can you love the people and govern the country with non-action? When the innate senses come into contact with the outside world, can they be quiet and conservative? After understanding various situations, can you not use your own cunning? To grow all things, to nurture all things, to give birth to all things without claiming them as one's own, to act on all things without relying on one's own strength, to guide all things without controlling them. This is the mysterious virtue. Most of the first half of this chapter talks about the 6 steps of learning. Let's briefly analyze its structure. First, the first 3 sentences talk about an individual, a person who has a heart and a body. How can the body cooperate to persist in the Tao? Then it mentions separately that the body should be like an infant, and the mind should be like a mirror. Next, the following 3 steps talk about how a sage cultivates outwardly loving the people, governing the country, and understanding the heavenly gate. What does it represent to act outwardly? It means that you have to temper yourself in the affairs of the world to become a sage. It's not possible to close the door for cultivation and become a ruler who comprehends the Tao as soon as you open the door. It's impossible. On the one hand, you have to cultivate yourself, work on your heart and body to combine them with the Tao. On the other hand, you have to temper yourself in many things for the people, and then you can achieve great success. The first 6 steps are all concluded with questions, which means what? Can you do this? How far can you go? This is precisely the process of cultivation. Let's further analyze it. First, the first sentence, can you carry the yoke and embrace the one without leaving? What kind of situation are you in? The soul comes from heaven, and the body comes from the earth. The ancients believed that a person is composed of 3 souls and 7 spirits, so heaven and earth are the sources of life. Living in the world, a person has a soul, which is the so-called heart, and a body, which is the so-called body. The body and mind often separate. So here it tells you, can you integrate the body and mind? Where is the integration? Preserve the one. This one usually refers to the Tao in Laozi's writings. You integrate the heart and body, hold on to the Tao, and do not leave the source. The Tao is the source and destination of all things. A person's state of heart and body is integrated, not leaving its root. So it asks later, can you not leave? The second sentence, focus your chi to be as tender as an infant. It specifically talks about the body, the physical aspect. Can you follow the breath and maintain softness, like an infant? An infant is the beginning of human life, with infinite possibilities, full of vitality and hope, ready to respond to any situation and start over at any time. So in terms of the body, you should make yourself soft and compliant, to the extent of an infant. Then, the third sentence, cleanse the deep mirror, can it be without blemish? Cleansing distractions, this mystery represents distractions. Viewing means to deeply observe. It specifically refers to the human mind. Taoism likes to compare the human mind to a mirror. If the mind is like a mirror, it cannot have any dirt on it. If a mirror itself has dust or dirt, it cannot reflect anything. The human mind is the same. So here it talks about cleansing distractions, without any flaws, without any complex things on it. The original heart is very calm to show the function like a mirror. Later, when Zhuangzi came, he used a term called the ultimate person uses the mind as a mirror. It is the highest realm of a person. He uses his mind like a mirror, keeping the heart clean and reflecting the true essence of all things. So, the first 3 steps are about cultivating an individual's life, heart, and body. Then look at the next 3 steps, which have already shown his role as a ruler. The 4th step will mention love the people and govern the country. Can you act without action? Loving the people and governing the country, only a ruler has such a possibility. So at this time, you have to ask, can you achieve non-action at this time? Laozi's non-action is a term he often uses. When we understand non-action, we must remember that it seems to do nothing on the surface, but in fact, it is action without intention. Action without intention is obviously the key point. Because a person who does nothing may be lazy. But if you act without intention, what does it mean? You can observe thoroughly and follow the natural state. When it comes to the 5th step, it mentions the heavenly gate opens and closes. Can you be the receptive one? The heavenly gate is the natural sensory ability of a person to come into contact with the outside world, using eyes, ears, etc. So when you use the heavenly gate to interact with others, can you maintain the receptive role? Compared with the active role, we say active, which represents taking the initiative to exert your strength and compete with others. The receptive role represents that I am willing to be passive. My senses should not be too active to show various complex desires, and can restrain themselves. So what is said here is that when interacting with the outside world, you should restrain yourself. Then, the 6th step mentions, understand all directions. Can you be without cunning? Understanding all situations. These 4 words mean that a sage understands everything. At this time, can you not use your own skills? This knowledge, you can practice into knowledge, which means you should not use cunning. You are not pretending to be ignorant when you know, but I have knowledge, but I do not use my skills. Because any use of skills is a means to an end, hoping to achieve another purpose. If you use too many skills, it becomes scheming. For Laozi, a sage has no need for this at all. The 6 steps mentioned before are one aspect of an individual's self-cultivation. On the other hand, an individual begins to become a ruler in matters, so he should interact with others, and this also needs to be cultivated. So the final conclusion is a short sentence, called, give birth without possessing, act without relying, grow without controlling. This is called mysterious virtue. These 4 sentences appear exactly the same in chapter 51. This is also why we think that Laozi's book was not written by one person but compiled by several people's insights together. That's why there is such a clear repetition. The so-called mysterious virtue, we are more familiar with. In Romance of the 3 Kingdoms, Liu Bei's courtesy name is Xuanda, generally called Lu Xuanda, which comes from here. Mysterious virtue is a wonderful virtue, a very wonderful virtue. We said that the Tao of Laozi refers to the source and destination of all things, and Laozi's virtue is the nature and endowment that all things obtain from the Tao. If all things survive and develop according to the nature and endowment given by the Tao, all things will maintain a very wonderful harmonious balance. However, when it comes to people, if there is no ruler, that is, this cultivated sage, then the consequences are more complicated. He has 4 mysterious virtues before, and the so-called give birth without possessing, act without relying, grow without controlling are 3 points that people learning from Laozi must memorize. and it is easy to connect these 3 sentences to illustrate: you cannot grow something and want to control it. You cannot do something and rely on yourself. When you are a leader, you should not control him. These 3 points are that I have, but I let it develop by itself. I am just in a role of helping him, assisting him, serving him, letting him develop freely, and he may not even know that he has been possessed by others, controlled by others. So from here, we can also see that a sage is a ruler who has comprehended the Tao. When facing all things, there is basically no problem because he has the correct knowledge and correct desires. For all things, it is easy to let them not block their source and not be close to their nature. But it's different for people. People's nature includes cognitive ability and desirability. From here, there will be knowledge and desire. If knowledge is biased and desire is persistent, there will be trouble later. So, a sage himself must be a role model, and when he governs, he must use his particularly brilliant wisdom to make the people feel that they have not been possessed by others, and that anything done seems not to be the power of a sage alone. And when a sage serves as a leader, he will not control others. So in the end, what have we learned in this episode? We have learned about the cultivation of sages as described by Laozi, and the goal of cultivation is to become a ruler who comprehends the Tao. Today, in the 21st century, we don't need to think about the concept of rulers when learning from Laozi's thoughts, but we need to be the rulers of our own lives, manage our own lives, and let ourselves perform in our own life range, family, work positions, or serve as the person in charge of a certain department, and try to show the actions of sages that we have learned from Laozi: give birth without possessing, act without relying, grow without controlling. So in the end, if you can do these 3 sentences, it means you are Laozi's best friend. Finally, here is a question for you: which step of the 6 cultivation steps mentioned by Laozi before do you think is the most difficult? Of course, you may think they are all difficult, but can you consider which step you can start with, where to start? Please think about it. I want to hear your opinion.